Welcome everybody. I'm Alex Hambley and I'm CIO of Vina Capital. And welcome to our 2Q webinar series where we are bringing to you the latest updates on Vietnam, the macro situation and the funds that we manage. To do it this quarter, we're using a series of fireside chats and I've asked Linh Vu, who's our head of research, to join us today for 10-15 minutes, Linh. To talk a little bit about how you're looking at the market and what's been happening and what the outlook is like. We had an earlier webinar with Mike Kokolari, who talked very positively about the macro outlook. But perhaps we could start where you, rather than looking forward, could you just spend a little bit of time updating us on what's happened in the last quarter or 6 months?
Thanks, Alex. Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending our second quarter webinar. Over the past quarter, the VN Index has done really well. For the first time in 3 years, it's pushed past the 1400 level. You might remember back in April, after Trump's announcement of a 46% tariff, the market dropped. And we talked about how Vietnam stock market has stayed strong during the past crises, like COVID-19 and the bond crisis. And we believe at that point it could bounce back again. At the time, we got some feedback that our outlook might have been a bit too optimistic. But looking back now, the VN Index has bounced back to more than 35% from its low on April 9th. And it is up 13% year to date in US dollar terms, making it one of the best outperformers in both ASEAN and globally. Daily market liquidity has also risen about $1 billion US per day, which is a very healthy level. Part of these improvements came from foreign investors returning after more than 2 years of net selling. What has been shaping the market sentiment?
Yeah. So what has driven that, Linh?
Yeah. What have been driven the recent rallies come from a few catalysts. First, the government's reform push. We like to call it Đổi mới 2.0. And second, Vietnam has reached a framework agreement with the US on tariff. The past was great, but the past is the past. Now many investors are asking us, what's next?
Yes.
Has the markets become fairly valued after the rally? Should we expect a correction? And how should we position ourselves going forward? To answer this question, I think we need to take a closer look at two key fundamentals of the markets. The first is the outlook of the corporate earnings, and second, the current valuation of Vietnam stock markets. These are the core factors that will shape the long-term and sustainable growth of the market. And even if we see a short-term corrections, it's important to stay grounded in the principles of long-term investment and value investing.
So, Linh, just summarize that outlook. How are you feeling about it?
Let me show a chart. As you can see the earnings outlook in the screen, the corporate earnings of the VN Index has been quite volatile with a lot of up and downs. And that said, we still believe Vietnam stock market has the potential to grow about 15 to 17% per year at the pace, twice the pace of the GDP growth. But with global uncertainties still in play and ongoing reforms of Vietnam's government restructure, we are taking a more cautious view and projecting the VN Index to earnings to grow at 13 to 15% in the next 2 years, 2025 and 2026.
But Linh, there's a lot of uncertainty in the world, and those numbers are pretty similar to what you were projecting at the beginning of the year, if I recall correctly. So, how confident are you about these projections? I mean, is there a level of optimism in here, or have you got some level of confidence underneath that underpins your thinking?
Yes, understood. Yes, I'm confident on Vietnam's long-term growth story, especially when it's come to earnings potential of listed companies. You have probably heard words like reforms, breakthrough, or new era of growth repeatedly in media recently. But the real question is, how will Vietnam actually achieve that? It's all come down to what we call the 4 pillar of domestic growth. And more importantly, a change in mindset of the very top governments behind these initiatives. I think Mike has already mentioned about those initiatives. 57 on technology, 59 on international integration, 66 on law enforcement, and the 68 on private sectors.
What does this mean in reality, though? I mean, these are resolutions, I think, for our viewers, perhaps. So what does this mean in practice?
For us, I think the one related to private sectors is the most important one to look at. Behind this is a structural shift of Vietnam's economy.
So this is Resolution 68?
68, exactly. Vietnam will be moving toward domestics from the FDI-driven economy before. And now you might be asking, how does that really mean to the local businesses?
Yes.
Well, under the Resolution 68, the message is clear. The private sector is the most important driver of the economy.
Okay.
Not one of the most, but the most important driver. And the government is committed to giving it the support needed to succeed. Here are some of the initiatives, the goals that the government would like to put forward. For example, grow the numbers of businesses to 2 million by 2030.
And just to put that in context, what are the number of private companies today?
In 5 years, we need to double the current number.
We've got 1 million today, is what you're saying?
Yeah, around that level. And to have at least 20 lakh Vietnamese companies competing on a global scale, go global. Boosting the private sector growth to about 10 to 12% per year, higher than the rest of the economy.
Thanks, Lynn. I think this paints an attractive picture for the private markets and what the government is trying to do. But how does this play out into the stock market and the public sector?
When the private sector gets full support, businesses are more likely to grow strongly in the years ahead. Big names like Vingroup, FPT, Hòa Phát, and others are already listed on the stock markets. That gives us, as investors, more chance to choose and invest in companies with higher growth potential. I believe this new initiative won't just help specific sectors. It will have a broader impact across the whole economy. Banks that fund these businesses will benefit too, and if more companies doing well, consumer confidence will also rise and people will spend more. That positive effect will ripple through the economy.
Okay, so we can build a picture here of the government, and this is helping both private and public companies. But the most important thing is, I mean, this is all very exciting, but the most important thing is entry valuation. So how are you thinking about valuation at the moment? I mean, it could be, is valuations running away from us, or how are you sort of putting this in context of that?
Since our last talk in the first quarter, valuations has gone up to 12 times forward PE as of today. But the market is still cheap. I think it's still trading at below its 10 years average. Bloomberg's forecast showed that Vietnam is still growing faster than ASEAN's average, yet our market is still trading as a discount compared to the region. I think there are still plenty of reasons for further upside. For example, earnings could be a surprise on the upside, and there is also potential emerging market upgrade coming in October. Also, it's worth noting that most of the index gains so far this year has come from a few Vingroup stocks, which have gained more than double or triple this year. The rest of the markets hasn't moved so much, so there's still
potential there.
There's room for sector rotation.
So again, you're painting a compelling story, but what are other investors? What are domestic investors, or perhaps more importantly, foreign investors feeling? How are flows now? How are they reacting to this?
Foreign investor flows has coming back very strong recently, but to predict the fund flows in the future is tricky. But let's just come to what have been going on recently. Recently, we have seen a lot of fund flows from PNOTs and quant funds. In July alone, there was about 450 million of US dollars fund inflows. This is the highest monthly figure in the last 2 years. Okay. And there has been a few reasons, I think, for this shift. First, Vietnam just became the first ASEAN country that reached a trade deal with the US, which gave more clarity around the tariffs. Second, we are getting closer to EM upgrade review. Third, some features of the new KRX system introduced in May have made it easier for quant funds to invest here in Vietnam. And last but not least, I think capital is flowing out of the US and looking for opportunities in emerging markets. And Vietnam maybe enjoy a little bit of this. More important, what I like to look at is the fundamentals of Vietnam has improved as we discussed earlier, and that could be a potential point for attract long-term foreign capital.
Can I scratch away at one of those, which is the EM upgrade? There's a lot of press, there's a lot of speculation around timing of that. How are you thinking? What are your thoughts on the timing of that?
If Vietnam gets the upgrade from FTSE in October, it could bring around a billion from passive funds and possibly 4 to 5 times of the amount from the active funds. I think this table really helps answer the questions. Are we finally close to an EM upgrade from FTSE? We have been talking about this for over 10 years now, and I understand a lot of people are feeling frustrated a bit. But the good news is, based on FTSE's criteria and the issues they asked the SSC to address, most of those now have been resolved.
So timing is?
October this year.
Okay, well, we'll hold you to that at the next...
For the announcement.
For the announcement, okay. So we get the upgrade. How are you... The market is cheap, it's exciting, but how do people play that market? So for our viewers, how do they think about perhaps what sectors to invest in?
Looking at the current policy landscape, we see opportunities in several key sectors. First, with 2 major policies. Number 1, keeping interest rate low and planning to remove credit growth caps next year. We think the banking sector is in a strong position to benefit. Second, with the change in the key laws such as real estate law, housing law, and along with the continued support on public investments, especially in infrastructure, we expect the real estate and construction materials sectors to benefit. Third, one of the 4 pillars is Resolution 57, which focuses on technology. Yep. Combined with the global push for AI adoption, the tech sector looks well positioned to benefit as well. And as we mentioned, with the possible market upgrade on horizon, the security sector is likely to benefit. Those are the sectors we think could benefit going forward.
And we've heard this from the other webinars that we've held. We've heard Mike talk about technology. We've heard the other Mike talk about in VVF and the exposure that's taken in brokerage. So all this is great, but again, trying to balance this, if you're trying to think about some of the risks that our viewers will be thinking about, what are the risks you would counsel them to be cautious about or to bear in mind as they start looking at Vietnam?
Talking about risks, I think Vietnam's stock market is still largely driven by retail investors, which makes it highly sensitive, very volatile and tough to invest. The second, the uncertainty around tariffs, as we discussed earlier, might have, especially the risk that other countries might secure better deal terms than us, could be a potential risk. Another risk I can think of is the risk of VND devaluation, given that our foreign reserves are currently at a relatively low level. Okay. So those are probably the risks that we are thinking of.
Great, thank you for that. So just trying to pull all that together, I hope that's been helpful and informative to viewers. I think we've painted a broadly positive picture, but again, there are some risks that I think investors need to be aware of. But generally, our sense here on the ground in Vietnam is this is an exciting time to be here. There's a lot of change going on. An observation I would make, perhaps to finish, is some of this change is happening faster than we anticipated. I don't know whether you have any perspectives on that, but this pace of change is something that is...
I agree, totally agree with you.
So full credit to the government and how they're trying to take things forward. My thanks to everybody for joining. Lynn, thank you for your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.